Welcome to Her Fantasy Football, where the three of us sisters just love talking about men that play fantasy football, of course. Make sure to check us out at herfantasyfootball.com and on Twitter at herfantasyfb. We're also on ESPNW and on Facebook /herfantasyfootball. I'm your host, Courtney Kirby.
And I'm Ashley Williams.
And I'm Brandon Lee.
And the only men we will not be talking about this week are the Kansas City Chiefs and the New Orleans Saints. They are on bye. Get them out of your lineup. Out. Gone. Adios, amigos. Until next week.
Hopefully Jimmy Graham repairs himself over the bye.
Please. This much needed. But we're going to give you hopefully some options for you to pick up and play instead of him. So we will see. We're just going to hop right into it this week. We got a lot to cover. Thursday night, the curse of the Thursday night. Indianapolis Colts 3-2 at the Houston Texans 3-2. All right, 3-2, not bad. This might be a good matchup. Probably not because it's Thursday night. So it's probably going to be a blowout.
No.
My bet's on the Colts. My bets are on the Colts.
Being blown out or doing the blowout?
Do you think the Colts are going to get blown out?
No, doing the blowout. No. I'm guessing Houston's going to go up in flames, and the Texans are going to be one.
All of us had this rage. I was like, what?
No. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Please. Okay. I hope I didn't just jinx them. Knock on wood. Play him if you got him. Andrew Luck. Hello. Luck's worst game. In his worst game, he still got you almost 19 points.
Yep.
So if that tells you anything, you're gonna play him. Yeah. And he rushed for a touchdown last week. Love you. Must start.
He's not a rusher.
I know. It's so crazy because he doesn't look that way, but he is. He's
nimble on his feet.
And I figured out the neck beard, by the way, watching Notting Hill last night. Not only does his flatmate have a neck beard, but so does his coworker in the bookstore. And I was like, man, Andrew Luck was meant to be in this movie. Anyways.
Maybe he was British in a former life.
Maybe so. We could have just slipped him in. And Ahmad Bradshaw, we're going to play him. Dwayne Allen, tight end for Jimmy Graham. You guys want to pick him up and play him. He's doing fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, he's a tight end numbers. I mean, it's not like he's getting 30 points every game, but I'm into him. I like him. We have him ranked 9th.
It's interesting you just said that, though, because is anyone getting 30 points every game except for Andrew Luck?
Oh, my gosh. I know, right? It's bananas this year.
It's a weird year. I don't feel like anyone – because I kept going through my write-ups, and I thought, this guy just has off and on. And I have to say almost every single player has been off and on.
Yeah.
It is mediocrity to its finest here in the 2014 NFL season. It is bananas. Either you are now officially a boom or bust player, or we are completely satisfied with you just getting us 10 points. It's one or the other.
Oh, yeah. 10 points is
like. Yeah. It's amazing. It's really bad. Adam Vinatieri, you're going to start him as well. Sounds stupid, but the Colts, did I even say that? Because we all know Vinatieri's the man. Under gut calls, this is where I get to my boomer bust mediocrity kind of situation here. We've got Reggie Wayne and T.Y. Hilton. Yeah. Although I can't help but rank them high because they play for the Colts and they have Andrew Luck throwing the ball. But, they're just not cutting it. Hilton has yet to have a touchdown this year and has only had over 100 yards once. Wayne has had 1 touchdown and his only game in double digits. I mean, it's crazy.
They're both dropping a lot of balls.
Yes. And, I mean, also Luck is throwing the ball all over the place. I mean, he doesn't have his guys. He just throws it to whoever's open. It's kind of like that's just the way the Colts play. It's not they change up their lineups. It's not that they change up their gameplay, depending on who they play against. Yeah, plan is they just literally sorry. Gameplay.
Not changing my gameplay either, Courtney.
Yeah. Don't switch it up. Why? I stop now.
Versatility's overrated.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So if 70 yards and no touchdown is good enough for you, then play them. And it might be, because
It might
again,
be.
this year is not the hottest. And that's also why Trent Richardson's in gut calls too, because he too
Ah.
falls there. I know.
But Bradshaw's in must plays, right?
Yes, must play. Yep.
Because he's been getting double-digit points every week, right?
Not every week, but yeah, I mean, he's doing a good job. You know, and
Good
they
enough.
clearly are picking Bradshaw over Richardson. Exactly. Good enough. So we're gonna play him this week.
Mm-hmm.
And for the bench, there's no clear bench players. So that's where I am with the Colts.
All right, Texans
nice place.
time. I feel bad. It was like a Texas showdown last week, and they were so close and couldn't pull it out. But it happens. But we'll see how this game goes. This one could be interesting. My play, if you got him, Arian Foster. What a fantastic game he had last week.
Oh, my God, finally.
I know. Foster owners were very happy. He was the second highest scoring running back last week. He had 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 23 touches. I am a little concerned whether he's going to get the same kind of workload because he's just been so injury prone. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to continue to give him 20-plus touches a game and keep him healthy. So I really think you're going to start to see that production come down. So I think this was a great game. I don't want you to get used to 23 points. I think he's going to get you more in that 15-point range, which is still great. You can't be mad about it.
Nope.
Just kind of set some expectations on that. DeAndre Hopkins is also my must-starts. He had his worst week last week, but he still got you 6 points. And Hopkins still looked really good. And it's hard to score when you've got Foster who has hands all over the ball the whole time, right? So the Colts actually have a good secondary, the second best secondary in the league, in fact. So it may not be the biggest week from him, but I think he'll still put up some decent numbers. My gut calls, I've yet to talk about kickers in a consistent fashion, but I'm going to talk about Randy Bullock this week. He's the 10th highest scoring kicker thus far this year, and this is a really interesting matchup, oddly enough, because you're looking at a kicker, you actually want to look for one of these tough games, and the Texans are just good enough to get into the red zone, but probably not going to be super good to actually score, so this could be like kicker gold right now. So I'm liking Randy.
Nice.
Andre Johnson, I'm not
Randy.
Randy. I've got a problem with Andre Johnson, and it's called only 5 points.
I've got a problem with this guy.
I've got a problem with it. I do. I've got a problem. His name is Andre. Andre. He's in my gut calls, but he really probably should be on your bench, in all honesty.
I put him on my bench.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's really only scoring you 5 points. He's not healthy, and his numbers are completely indicative of that fact. And if you have a remotely decent option, you should play him instead until Johnson can, prove to be a little bit healthier. And quite honestly, the Texans should bench him for a week so he can actually get healthy and start producing not only for your fantasy team, but for their actual football franchise. Just a thought, Texans. Roll it over. My bench will be Texas defense. They're fantastic. They're top defense, but the Colts give up the second fewest points to defenses. So this is not going to be a good week for you. If you watch the Colts at all, you know that they're offense. And if the Texans could only score 2 points against the Cowboys, that's going to give you an idea of what they might score against the Colts. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick again, you know the deal. He had 6 interceptions in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
Do you know they're actually calling him Ryan Fitzpick? No, Ryan Fitzpick. No, Pat Pick. Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Pick.
I can't even say it. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Do you know what they're calling him? I don't even think you know what they're calling him, Ashley.
2 minutes before you know what they're calling me.
Maybe Fitzpatrick.
It's Fitzpatrick. Yeah, it's Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Okay. I figured it out.
Twister. Yeah.
It took a little longer than it should have, but yeah.
It took a while. I think the Golden Tate should really be a fun one for us later, if this is how I'm already talking in my first write-up.
Golden Tate,
Anyway.
Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, he's been
that's
3
enough.
against the Colts, and so we've done deals.
It's
Don't
done,
play it.
Ashley. You lost us at the Fitzpatrick. It's done. You're benching him. All right, Pittsburgh
benching
Steelers
myself.
3-2 at the Cleveland Browns 2-2. Ashley,
Browns.
So.
I know, this would be a fun one. This is a divisional
I'll wait my
matchup.
turn.
Which, these rivalries are always really fun. So I'm excited for this game.
Cheering for the Browns. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I'm cheering for the Browns too, even though I have to cover the Steelers. But Steelers, Le'Veon Bell, you might play him if you got him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he looked a little disappointing. If you, is Brandon just do like a pelvic thrust move for Le'Veon Bell?
No,
there?
but I was just doing the arms, but I realized that probably the full motion would include that. but
Yeah,
I
it
was
definitely
not
looked
doing
like
it.
that.
Yeah. Well,
It's all right, you can do it. He's,
Thanks.
you know, I was gonna say he hasn't been that exciting this week, but Brandon seems excited that she's doing the pelvic thrust for him.
yeah.
So, yeah. You can't complain about 11 points, though, guys. I want to throw that out there. You cannot complain about 11 points. We had some weird, freakish weeks where some people went off, but 11 points he's been consistent for you. And the Browns have give up over, around 140 rushing yards to opposing running backs. So Bell should have a really nice week, especially if he's able to find the end zone, which I think he will. Antonio Brown, this is the first week he did not score you double-digit points. And I don't think you should expect that he's going to throw up another 8-point game for you. The Browns get up the 8th most points to wide receivers. He's going to do great. And on average, if you need some more encouragement, he either has gotten at least 87 yards or a touchdown in every single matchup he's played against the Browns. So he loves playing the Browns. You should love him in your lineup this week.
Agree.
Gut calls, Heath Miller, again, just because people that owned Jimmy Graham maybe in a little bit of a pickle this week. I'm not saying Heath Miller's a solution per se, but I'm just going to throw it out there depending on who's been picked up in your league. He's averaging almost 60 yards per game within the last 3 games. And he almost caught another touchdown last week. So he would have been double-digit points if that had been the case. So I actually think he won't be that terrible this week. Just saying. My bench has been Roethlisberger. He didn't have an awful game last week, but nothing fantastic either. It's a divisional rivalry. So usually there's a lot of fun energy around that, but you've got better options. And Marcus Wheaton, we've talked 10 million times about how you cannot play him until he starts getting targeted more. So he's out.
Out.
Boom. Cleveland Browns. So supposedly Johnny Football said something about missing college. Yeah, I think so. I just want to point out that I was one of the very few people that said I refuse to talk about Johnny Football because I do not talk about backup quarterbacks. And I'm standing by it. This week is going to be a little bit of gloating. I'm preparing everyone now.
You did good.
Yes. He's in my gut calls, but yes, very well. Him, if you got him, is Ben Tate. Welcome back. Welcome back, my friend. Hi. He rushed for 123 yards. He did not get in the end zone, but that's a great first game back. And clearly Cleveland meant it when they said it in the preseason, which we kept saying they want to use Ben Tate as a workhorse. So Terrence West and Isaiah Crowell, talent, keep them on your bench, but they are not playable anymore until Ben Tate gets hurt again, if that happens. So that is a thing that's happening. Gut calls. Jordan Cameron. If you want to talk about busts of the year, Jordan Cameron is like really right up there with Adrian Peterson, which, by the way, the Adrian Peterson orgy story is now my new favorite party trick.
Orgy
you guys
story.
Hear about this? Yeah,
No.
the Star Tribune. Supposedly he was investigated for an orgy with his 17-year-old cousin, I think. And
He had an
another
orgy
guy,
with a cousin?
and he paid for it supposedly with money from his charity. It's a huge Star Tribune story. Like it's actually like a.
I'm
like
sorry.
In the paper.
17-year-old male or female?
Male.
Male?
And they had 4 women there. Well, they had 4 women there.
He had sex with his 17-year-old cousin.
No, he didn't
no.
have sex with
Well,
him, but
it was an orgy.
he and his nephew or cousin had sex with these women. They weren't touching each other. It was they were exchanging ladies.
It was an orgy.
I mean, I have not been in an orgy, but I believe usually
not either.
everybody's touching everybody, no?
I don't know. I've never
I need to
had
sleep
anyone-
tonight, so I'm not imagining Adrian Peterson with a relative at this point.
You
I'm
know
just not gonna
somebody's
do it.
going to make a comment about this one.
Yeah.
I'm too pure. Too pure.
Well, the Star Tribune is really solid about their story. They are 100% backing it up. It's very crazy. And I'm from Minnesota, so like the Star Tribune stuff went like right up in my Facebook profile because all my friends were posting it. But anyway.
Do you think he busted a switch out for a little S&M during that orgy?
Oh my God, Ashley!
God.
Too soon.
Too soon.
Oh, I think I just threw up in my mouth.
Oh man, I don't know how we got talking to
You know,
that.
I'm always the one to
Jordan
ride the
Cameron.
inappropriate line. That's my favorite.
Oh. Back to Jordan Cameron. So.
Oh yeah, back to that boring guy.
He's a disappointment. Yes, exactly. He hasn't been the same since he has a shoulder injury in week 1. But there's a chance he could bounce back because, frankly, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the worst against tight ends. So if there's a week, if you're really desperate, there's a glimmer of hope. But I don't know if it's one I would take. Brian Hoyer got calls. So I've had him got calls before, and I kind of was on this train. And people left. But now, Monday Morning Quarterback and all these other sites are like, Brian Hoyer is doing something with minimal targets. So he completed 10 of 24 passes per game. That's kind of meh. But he's only thrown 1 interception to 6 touchdowns in 4 games.
When are other publications going to learn to listen to us?
Right?
Especially about...
Probably when we stop talking about orgies with underage kids
switches
and using switches. Probably that's when they're going to start listening.
I'm so embarrassed to even bring it up again. I can't. So he is he's okay this week against Pittsburgh. Hoyer, but Pittsburgh gives up the 8th fewest points to quarterbacks. So, but the next 2 games, he's at Jacksonville, then he hosts Oakland, and then Tampa Bay. So
can't ask for much better than that. Yeah.
Nope. Andrew Hawkins was disappointment. PPR play only. He is averaging. He's never had less than 9 targets in a game. So he still is a guy. Miles Austin, touchdown dependent. He scores a touchdown 50% of the time. So it is literally a flip of the coin. You only know how desperate you are. Travis Benjamin got 2 touchdowns last week, but he only caught 1 pass in each of the, he caught up touchdown. No, let me restart this. You guys, this is a rough week. Hello.
All of us.
I'm doing fabulous. I
think it's because we're all, Courtney's the only one drinking. That's probably why she's a coherent one.
Okay.
I'm drinking iced tea. I need to clearly spike it.
So last week, Travis Benjamin, he caught 4 passes for 48 yards and 2 touchdowns. But the 2 weeks before, he only caught 1 pass in each game. Okay? Yep. He's never seen more than 4 targets in a game, so you can't count on that. And Taylor Gabriel, we didn't even rank him. He's a big play guy. But you should pay attention because he caught 3 passes 2 weeks in a row. And 1 week it went, he caught 3 passes for 81 yards. And then in week 4 and in week 5, he caught 4 passes for 95 yards. Anyway, I'm a disaster zone. I'm done. But I love the Browns. Fantasy goodness.
On that note, who wasn't a disaster zone last week was the Patriots.
Yeah.
We got the New England Patriots 3-2 at Buffalo Bills 3-2. This is going to be a good game.
That was a hate game.
It was.
It was.
It was some hate love making on the Patriots side.
It totally was. It was awesome. Although not expecting the same this week, but just say lovey. Who were starting? Rob Gronkowski.
Sure.
Yeah. Steven Gostkowski.
Always.
Yeah. He had 21 points last week. What? Double digits in every game but the disaster in Arrowhead, which, Tom Brady made him look bad. It wasn't you, Gostkowski. You're great. Julian Edelman. So Edelman had yet another game with less than 40 yards and no touchdown. Okay. Ouch. It appears that the defense has figured him out.
Mm-hmm.
Or thus far, the game plan of New England.
Although I think it's because Gronk is getting more touches, right?
Gronk is in the game.
Yeah.
More. So every week, Gronk has been increasing his snaps counts, which is great. It's great for him. It's great for the Patriots. It is also going to be good for Edelman. We just need to get ourselves into the groove, and so do the Patriots. Okay, this is just what we need. He is still a great wide receiver, and I think I just think he'll have a good game against Buffalo. Who are better covering tight ends than they are wide receivers. So, with that said, gut calls. I have Timothy Wright. Hey, good game. They're playing 2 tight end sets. It's wonderful. I don't love of him this week, but if you're desperate, if you're if you need somebody, he's not a bad choice. I got Stephen Ridley and Shane Vereen.
No.
Now, I didn't draft them because I knew that Belichick is a messed up man who likes to mess with fantasy owners. And I really do think that that's his game plan. And now in 2014, it's finally catching up to him. But it's still catching up with you, Ridley and Vereen fans. So I don't love them. If you have to play them, you're going to play them in a flex position. But they're not going to have a great week this week, is my opinion. New England's defense, we have them ranked 15th. I think I like to have them even, right about 15th. They might have a good game against Buffalo. It might be kind of a low-scoring game, Yeah. So I don't dislike them. And then on the bench, I do have Tom Brady. I thought for sure there was going to be a press conference before the game last week saying this is going to be my last game. This is so fun playing with the Patriots. But no, he came out and did great, and I'm not taking that away from him. But the Buffalo defense is tough against quarterbacks, so not the week to start him. Sorry, he's on the bench.
Agree. As far as the Buffalo Bills are concerned, actually New England's defense is a lot better against fantasy players than you might think. So I'm not loving anyone really from Buffalo either, except for Fred Jackson. He's questionable because he injured his ankle, but he's likely to play, and he's awesome. He caught 7 passes last week against the Lions, and he caught 7 passes last year against the Patriots. So I'm seeing a trend, and I enjoy it. And he's a solid flex play every week. Sammy Watkins also caught 7 passes last week against the Lions. That's pretty great. So awesome. Now that Orton's in, Sammy Watkins is also a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 every single week, a flex play. You can trust him. And New England gives up the 3rd fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, so he's the only wide receiver you can possibly kind of consider on this team. And got called C.J. Spiller. Rushed for 8 yards. 8 yards.
Way to go.
On 10 carries. It's not like he didn't carry the ball.
Baller.
Right. Now, it was the Lions, so, we already told you to temper your expectations.
Yeah.
They are fantastic against the run. But seriously, that low, that's I don't know. Kyle Orton, listen, he won the game. Yay. He scored 13 fantasy points. It's fine. It is what it is. But he helps everyone else on the team. You don't want to start him. And no one else is really getting it done. So that's about it. And just as a note, Chris Gregg remember last week I said the Lions were the weakest against tight ends, but that's, they don't really have one. Chris Gregg was the tight end who caught the one touchdown that was thrown last week for the Bills. So he got the touchdown, not Scott Chandler. So if you're someone who is streaming tight ends and you really are that desperate, I would keep an eye on that.
Good call. Nice. Mm-hmm. Nice. I'll tell you, you shouldn't be desperate if you own Greg Olsen, because we got the Carolina Panthers 3-2 against the Cincinnati Bengals 3-1.
He's on my bench. I'm really mad.
You are not good at fantasy.
I have Rob Gronkowski.
No, you are not good.
This is a weird league where I actually have Ron Gronkowski and Greg Olsen.
That's tough.
Okay.
That's okay.
I can respect that.
Okay, Ashley. You can have your job back.
we were actually posting it to Craigslist.
Yeah, we were gonna be
looking for sister/fantasy analyst.
Yeah, it's nuts. Calvin Benjamin. Okay, so last week was rough.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was the worst game by far. Dropping passes, fumbling the ball. It was bad. But you know what? It's going to be better.
Yep.
It might not be the best this week. But it's going to get better, you guys. It's Calvin Benjamin. He's a rookie. Give him a little bit of a break. We've always talked about how rookie wide receivers, you know.
And he's been amazing up to this game.
Amazing. Okay, so I like him as wide receiver 3 this week, just because Cincinnati has given up the 7th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers.
Mm-hmm. Unless you're a Patriot.
But I'm still playing him. I have him in a lot of my leagues, and I'm playing him. So I'm just throwing that out there. Great wide receiver 3 flex option. Greg Olsen, we have him ranked 2nd because he deserves it.
Yep.
Enough said. Gut calls Carolina's defense. We have them ranked 14th. They're a little boom and bust this year, right?
Yeah.
Kind of stinky. And against Cincinnati Bengals, unless this is a very low-scoring game, it might be a tough catch this week. Bench warmers, Cam Newton. Oof. He's yet to have a game over 20 fantasy points. He is still not healthy enough to rely on him for his running game, and that's kind of a big part of Cam Newton.
Yeah.
He had 9 yards on 6 carries. Just not going to cut it for Mr. Newton. Newton is the man. I love him. And once he gets healthy, he's going to be great. It's going to be great. But this is not a good matchup. This is not a good matchup. Not for a while. I don't believe. I think maybe week 9.
And week 12. Week 12. That's rough.
Yeah,
they need to buy to rest those ribs.
Seriously, it's not going to happen. Cincinnati gives up the 3rd fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks, so... It's over for Newton in week 6. Sorry. Yeah. I'm on the Cincinnati Bengals here. Play him if you got him. Giovanni Bernard. Great matchup for Bernard. Play him. Enough said. Nice. AJ Green. Injury report.
I can't hear this.
So if you're a parent, you know that song comes from some stupid bug. It's like silly. But I always do that whenever somebody says injury report.
I thought it's like
I know you guys don't have kids.
Original.
No. Some bug on some TV show on Sprouts or something does
some bug.
Some kind of.
We've really done the full gamut here, guys. We've got Sprouts single and switches.
Yeah, it's it is what it is. But AJ Green was carted off the field today in practice and will be most likely not playing on Sunday. This is toe injury. Okay, it's a toe injury. Can't he hop off the field?
No,
does he really need to be carted? I know, but you've got one good foot.
No, but that's your balance.
Grab the shoulder. You could. I'm not saying it's not gonna affect his game even throughout the rest of the season. I get that. I am talking about being carted off. He could grab onto a guy and hop off the field. It's practice. Nobody's watching. Give me a break. But whatever.
Well, he's their prized possession. It's not him. It's them. They're like,
you should have a private golf cart on the field at all times.
They probably bubble wrapped him before they even put him in the cart just to ensure.
Seriously.
Dusted it off.
Unfortunately for us fantasy owners who took him early, he will most likely not be playing on Sunday. So what do you gotta do? You gotta pick up Mohamed Sanu. If somebody doesn't already own him, it's Sanu. You are it. That's it. That's all Cincinnati's got. So feel good about playing him. I'm into him. Cincinnati's defense, I'm also starting them. Let's do it, Cincy. I'm into it. Gut calls this week. I've got Andy Dalton ranked 12th, and that is the highest Andy Dalton's been ranked this year, I believe. It's a great matchup, people. Great matchup alert. Carolina gives up the 10th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Dalton has yet to have the numbers he had last year. But on a positive note, he's only had 1 interception. Hey-o.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I might drop him, though, now that
that's fair.
Green's out.
Yeah, it's fair.
Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
You won't have that deep ball that'll make us all breathe a little easier.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know. I'm okay with him.
Okay.
I think he might make some stuff happen this week. I'm into it. I'm kind of into it. But you're right. I did do that write-up before I knew A.J. Green was carted off the field. So it might be now down to a bench 18th kind of quarterback. But we'll see. I got Grisham on the bench, but he too might be bumped up a little bit now that AJ's out. But we're really going to be relying on Giovanni Bernard and Jeremy Hill if we're going to get a victory out of the Bengals this week. We'll see. Jacksonville Jaguars 0-5 at Tennessee Titans 1-4.
Fantastic. Jacksonville. So here's the deal. I wish that actually Ashley's write-up went first because I'm not quite sure what the quarterback situation is in Tennessee. The only person you can possibly play, stop yourself. Well, there's two. Josh Scobie and their defense.
Hey-o.
Both of which scored 10 fantasy points last week. And if Tennessee's a nightmare, there's a possibility that they do something. On the other hand, all of the other offensive players, the highest scorer was Allen Robinson with 5.1 fantasy points. He caught 50. He had 51 yards receiving. That's it. That's the top scorer. So no one's playing him if you got him, unless you decide to go this Jacksonville streaming defense thing. Got calls. Tennessee is kind of a mediocre defense, so technically there probably are gut calls, but the only one I would possibly take a slight chance on is Allen Robinson, and once again, only in PPR formats because at least he has a lot of catches. He's had no less than 4 catches since week 2, just to be specific. Benchwarmers, Blake Bortles has thrown 2 interceptions in every game so far. Once he stops doing that, he might be pretty decent. But until then, we got problems. So that's Jacksonville.
Bam.
All right. Titans. They're not a whole lot more exciting either.
Great.
Yeah. Is anyone even going to watch this game? Probably not.
Well, not if anyone's not scoring over 5 fantasy points.
Well, few are. Delaney Walker's got a chance, too.
Yeah,
I'll tell you why. So Walker's really kind of become this, like, on one week, off the other. On one week, off the other. So he scored 9 points, then 20, then 5, then 14, then 4, which means technically he should score double-digit points this week. And the Jacksonville Jaguars give up the second most points to tight ends. So this should actually be a really good week for Delaney Walker. My gut calls, Kendall Wright, who blew up and had an amazing game last week, scoring 20 points. Crazy. And this was finally the kind of game we wanted to see what he's actually capable of. You know, and the other good news is that it doesn't really seem to matter whether it's Whitehurst or Locker in the game. He tends to have about the same completion, so, you know, that's good. But the bad news is he has scored 4 points or less in the 3 games before this game, which should give you a moment of pause. So my thing is if you're in a PPR league, you can look at Kendall Wright. Otherwise, I would say don't get too excited about last week's game. Same goes for Justin Hunter. If you're in a PPR league, then it's okay. He was in every single snap but 2 last week, and he had a touchdown. So Hunter also seems like a play better with Whitehurst. So I would take a look and see whether Locker's going to be in or Whitehurst. Just saying. Benchwarmers, I've got Sean Green and Bishop Sankey. Again, you really shouldn't be playing them. You know this. And then the Tennessee Titans quarterbacks. And I say this because we're not sure who's going to be playing. Charlie Whitehurst, who's actually played pretty well when he's come in for the injured Jake Locker. You know, Locker left the game in the second quarter. Whitehurst came in. Whitehurst scored 15 points, but Locker had scored 16 points in 2 quarters. So neither of them are a terrible start per se, but Locker's X-rays came back negative, so we're not sure if Locker's going to play. I'm just nervous if you put him in, he's going to get benched again in the second quarter, and you're going to be angry, or you're going to play Whitehurst. I mean, I don't know. I would just.
He took a serious hit, and I feel like you know, it wasn't. It looked really bad, and it was scary. But I think he's good to go.
Locker?
Let's do it. Yeah. If he starts,
you're going one direction, and then you went like this.
If he starts, you start him.
I don't think so. You think so?
I think so. I don't think it's going to get injured again in the same spot. I mean, it was a freak hit because he ran and got you 6 points. You know? I mean, at least he got injured in style. You know?
I think it's dicey. I would play Hoyer over Locker.
I would play Hoyer over Locker. Yes, Ashley.
Personally, yeah.
Yeah, Locker's not bad. Not bad. Well, let's see who's bad on the Green Bay Packers 3-2 and the Miami Dolphins 2-2. Anybody?
Well, you know what? The Green Bay Packers last week were actually kind of so-so on fantasy points because they blew out the Vikings in the first quarter.
Yeah, blowout.
If you actually looked at it, Jordy Nelson caught one pass. Okay, it went for a touchdown, but that happened. Aaron Rodgers only threw for 156 yards, also 3 touchdowns, but it was a very weird fantasy game. Listen, it was the most bizarre game on the planet. And by the way, there is no quarterback controversy for the Vikings, in case you're wondering. Poor Ponder.
No.
So sad.
It was uncomfortable. I'm still uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable talking about the Packers just because it brings up those memories. Either way, you start Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, and Aaron Rodgers every time. I am going to take a second to talk about Eddie Lacy because he had a bounce-back game that we thought he would have, which is great. 105 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 21 receiving yards. I'm going to probably be laughed out of town, but I still think I'd borderline sell high on Eddie Lacy. I'm not quite sure he's going to go up against the Vikings every week.
Sophomore slump.
I think he's going to...
He looked good, though.
Yeah. I think he'll do okay this week too. I'm just saying, he looked good in one game out of 5.
I feel better about Lacy than I feel about LaShawn McCoy right now.
That I agree with. Yeah. Okay. I guess it depends on what it is. I just feel like, I don't know. Maybe I'm probably being a little He's averaging 60 total yards per game.
No, McCoy sucks. I don't understand how you could even compare the two, Lacy and McCoy. No, McCoy's awful. I would just drop him.
He's one of those top backs.
You would not drop.
You're not going to drop You're not going to drop a first-round draft pick. You're not going.
No, I'm saying if you're looking to trade,
who are you going to get?
My husband won't even drop AP. He's holding on, just in hopes that possibly.
Yeah. No,
well, he had his case today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For somehow AP gets brought up, or the Vikings, in every single matchup we've done.
We're not even there yet.
And it's going to be a short one because I really have nothing to say about them.
Gut calls those Green Bay defense, you guys. Just putting that out there.
Hey,
we have ranked number 11. They forced 6 sacks, 2 interceptions, and a fumble last week. Now, once again, they're not going up against Ponder, but they are going up against Tannehill, who gets sacked, and who isn't exactly, blowing our minds this season. So it's a nice matchup if you're streaming defenses. Bench warmers, Devontae Adams. Once again, I don't want to say I told you so, but I did say he would get his first touchdown of his career last week in Lambeau Field and do the Lambeau Leap, and he did. Now, that's all he did, but he did it.
That
was kind of cool. So, yeah, that's it. Green Bay, you either start him or you don't.
Fair enough.
Yep. Oh, and I love Mason Crosby.
Yeah, who doesn't? He's really great. Have you seen that? He was my class in CU. Then again, I'm really graying too, so tough to say. Anyway, my favorite got Mike Wallace. So Wallace hurt his hamstring 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But the timing could not have been better because they entered right into their bye week, right? So this gave him time to actually heal. Hopefully he is completely healed. He was listed as questionable. He is listed as questionable and was limited in practice on Wednesday. So keep your eye on him. The Packers have a pretty decent secondary, but I still think that Wallace will be able to produce for you. My gut calls is Lamar Miller and Knowshon Moreno.
Oh, what's going on?
Hear me out. So Miller's been playing actually really well while Moreno has been out. And technically, Miller has always been the starter, but Moreno was playing so fantastic and outshining Miller that it was kind of like, well, should they even keep him as, the actual starter? But both of these guys in the gut call for the pure reason that we have no idea who's actually get the most touches, as Knowshon Moreno is expected to also be back this week. So in the past, Knowshon has almost doubled Miller's touches, but Miller's been playing so well. So what are they actually going to do? This is risky. But I will say maybe think about them in your flex because the Packers have allowed the 6th most points to running backs. So there is a possibility that both could actually have a good week. I'm just a little nervous for you to risk it in your starting running back position. Yeah. Bench would be Brian Hartline. So Hartline actually also had 2 decent weeks, scoring 8 points and then 7 points before the Dolphins had their bye week. But I don't want you to be tempted by this because he is not a dynamic enough wide receiver to break free from the Packers' corners. It's just not going to happen. So keep him on your bench.
Yep. And thank God nobody else is going against the awesome Detroit Lions, 3-2, the Minnesota Vikings, 2-3. I have to replace my Vikings back with the Detroit Lions from last year. They are once again my favorite. Love them.
Yeah. So, play if you got them. Lions defense. They were the 9th highest scoring defense last week. They're the 3rd highest scoring defense overall. You do not bench these guys at all, especially when they're playing a team that gives up the 5th most fantasy points in defenses. So this could be a big week for your defense. Also playing if you got him, Golden Tate. I'm just going to call him Golden for the sanity of this podcast this week. Golden was the 5th highest scoring wide receiver last week, scoring 19 points of 134 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
As predicted, we had talked about Calvin Johnson's injury and that Golden would be the one to benefit from that, and he certainly has. He's not the top receiver on the team at the moment, and this week is going to be no different as the Vikings have a really weak secondary, and he should be able to pick them apart. I feel really good about Golden this week.
Is Calvin Johnson on the bench? Like, did they say we're sitting him yet?
They have
not.
Are
they still doing this? Meh.
But he's on my bench, and I'll get to him. But first, got called.
Good.
Matthew Stafford. So let's be honest, you're probably going to play him because you probably didn't have a quarterback that's actually better to play this week. But I just want you to temper your expectations. He only scored 10 points last week and threw for only 1 touchdown and only 221 yards. This was the fewest of the season for him. And he doesn't have his safety net in Calvin Johnson at full strength. So the Vikings actually allow the 10th fewest points to quarterbacks. I really wouldn't expect magic from him. And then I want to talk about Matt Prater, because why wouldn't we? Prater. We called it. We're like, this is the best day for the Lions.
Drunks need jobs too, people.
They are so excited.
Broncos, stupid.
I don't know, because, I mean, they said that they don't trust that he's going to be able to stick to the policies of the NFL. I know
even if he's cool for 3 weeks, it's better than what they had. Right? I mean, let's be honest.
I mean, I don't know. It's a tough situation for the Broncos, but a fabulous situation for the Lions.
Yeah. I know. Because if they would have gotten rid of McManus, then they would have lost a draft pick in next year's draft.
And
so they were factoring that in as well.
And if he did get drunk again, we'd be without a kicker late in the season. We're trying to make the playoffs, and then maybe we'd have to play Alex Henry.
And that ain't gonna happen. That's not gonna fly.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, it's rough. But then the point of it is that the Lions are ecstatic, right?
Oh, yeah, they're pumped.
They are pumped because he was one of the best kickers of
winning
the season last year, and all they have had is kicking woes all year long.
Yeah.
So they literally won the lottery right now. They could not be happier. My bench is Calvin Johnson. Plain and simple, he is hurt. He scored you 0 points last week, 1 point the week before that. I said last week they should bench him and let him heal. Clearly, people are not listening to me. I don't understand why.
What is going on?
I'm kidding. But don't be surprised if the Lions do actually make the right decision, because after the game they said they probably should have sat him. He still has an ankle injury, so I'm saying bench him because he's clearly not healthy. Reggie Bush and Joique Bell I also have on the bench. You know, here's kind of lay of the land. Bush is hurt, and he's day-to-day with an ankle injury. He missed practice on Wednesday, and he's only really scoring you 5 points or less each week, so you shouldn't feel good about that. And Joique Bell did make practice on Wednesday, but so did Theo Riddick, who could cut into his playing time. And Bell scored 11, 7, 3, 3, and 0. He is going in the wrong direction. Altogether, not encouraging. Do not play the Lions backfield.
Once again, so sorry, Casey Kasem, one of our favorite followers, who I know has a league with a Vereen Joique Bell situation.
It's sad.
Awful. Nightmares.
Think of her every time.
Football 2014. Well, you know what else is a nightmare? Minnesota Vikings. Play him if you got him. Nobody got calls. Matt Asiata. So last week he got you 5 points. I mean, we've all said throughout the whole show, you know, you have to temper your expectations for people. But 5 points isn't going to cut. And they're facing Detroit this week. So they're a lot tougher than Green Bay. I would say try to find a different option, people. Oh, Cordero Patterson. Almost to the point where I'm going to stop talking about you and take you off the rankings because you were completely pointless. So
Please
let's
do.
get in. Yeah.
We should make a Cordell Patterson stand right here and say we will no longer talk about you until you are fantasy relevant.
We did that with Johnny Football, and look what happened.
I just love him, though. They love him. I don't get it.
Patterson, yeah. Well, he's very talented, but okay.
You know what?
He's super talented, but he's not getting open. He plays for a tough team with a backup quarterback. Their top player is gone, is done. I mean, their kicker, Blair Walsh, who was great last year, isn't even worth talking about because they can't even get on the other half of the field.
Yeah.
So, I mean, literally, it's just not good.
But do you think Bridgewater is going to be better? I mean, they'd had that great game with him.
Right. So Teddy Bridgewater, he's on my bench. Bridgewater says he's 100% healthy. Well, that's great. But his matchup is not good, guys. Detroit gives up the fewest fantasy points to quarterback.
Yeah, no, you're
That
right.
is any quarterback, not just a backup, an injured one, a rookie, and one that has no weapons to throw the ball to. Okay, so it's just not like my scenario of like, ooh, a sleeper. Like, no, it doesn't look good this week against Detroit. So sorry. Yeah, it might be better for Minnesota, but it's not better for your fantasy team. Moving on to what is good for your fantasy team, the Denver Broncos, whoop, whoop, and the New York Jets, 1-4.
It was like a game of breaking records, is what last week was.
It was like 2013 all over again.
I know. I didn't have time to write all the records down, but I just want to say congrats, Peyton Manning, on breaking 500. You are what? Just a few away from breaking Favre's record.
Just a few.
How many?
I guess Favre was interviewed about it.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. So he's like, I don't have time for this. I'm farming.
Right. In my Wranglers. Yeah.
Have you seen his male grooming commercial?
No.
Yes.
He has a male grooming commercial. It's so comical. You think it's a joke, like it's an SNL skit, but no, it's actually.
It's real?
He's like, yeah, I've been letting it all grow because why not? But now I have this male grooming kit, and then it's him clean shaven, and then him grizzled. So those are the two things that you see next to each other, and it's like, oh.
So he has that on top of his Wranglers commercial with a little extra room in the
Gotta make money.
Interesting.
Gotta make money. Male grooming.
Apparently he can't be bothered to show up for the breaking records, which I can understand. Like, he's not going to follow around to be there when he breaks them, because who knows when he'll break them. But I don't think this could be the week. I think it's going to be close.
My money's on it.
I think we know which week, actually.
It's going to be close. It's going to be close. But I can understand why he wouldn't want to fly out for this game, which is just going to be a blowout. But, you know, Peyton Manning obviously is a must-start.
Just list them, actually.
Julius Thomas is a must-start.
Yeah.
Matt Sanders is a must-start.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll talk about Demaryius Thomas. Another big congrats to him, Mr. Thomas. Yeah, in a big way he
finally,
right? This was huge, not only for your fantasy team, but he needed this game for his confidence, right? He needed this game to not only prove to himself that he's back, but he also, more importantly, needed to prove it to Peyton that, hey, you can keep throwing me the ball. So this is huge. He had 34 points, top wide receiver last week, off 226 yards and 2 touchdowns. And what's crazy is he actually got a 77-yard catch called back. He would have been over 300 yards if that had not been called back. And this was the play where Julius Thomas chop blocked, which was an accident. He's probably just going to get a fine. You know, Bruce Arians wants him pulled from the game, but it clearly was just a miscommunication between him and Ryan Clady. But is what it is, but Thomas would have been over 300 yards, which would have been bonanzas. But congrats to you, buddy, for breaking the Broncos franchise single game yardage record.
Boom.
My gut calls Wes Welker. Also, congrats to you. He has the most yards of any undrafted wide receiver.
Yeah,
player. Yeah, so he beat out Rod Smith on that one. So congrats to you on that. That's the only congrats you're going to get from me, because you were not the bright, shiny toy we were hoping you were to be when you came back from your suspension.
No.
Literally 6 points.
All in.
I know. 6 points in week 3, had a bye week, 5 points last week. If you're in a PPR league, you're not hating him, but if you're in a standard league, you are hating him. So that's really all there is on Wes. And then my other gut calls are any Broncos running back. I might be alone on this one, right? So Monty Ball went out with a groin injury. As far as what the roster depth chart goes, it's Ronnie Hillman, then C.J. Anderson, and Juwan Thompson, technically. But I can see Fox literally playing all 3 of these guys very much in a committee situation, and there's absolutely no way for you to know which one of them will play well, if any of them will play well, because quite honestly, the Broncos' backfield has been dismal the last few games. I don't love it.
I bet they wish they had no Sean Marino still on their roster.
Right? I think they do.
I thought that was one of the weirdest things that they did, was drop.
I know, because Ball was
extremely... They could have gotten him for cheaper. I was like, this makes no sense. But
because nobody was getting him. They could have gotten him for dirt cheap. Yeah. Ball was unproven. We said this in the preseason that we're like, hey, temper your expectations on Ball because he is yet to show that he can carry the workload.
Carry the ball.
and be a solo back. You know, and here we are. We're not surprised. Just saying.
Yeah, and we don't know who his backup is.
No, we don't know.
It could be Hillman, it could be Anderson. Supposedly they're running other people to see if, you know, they want to add someone to the team. I wouldn't, yeah.
I would stay away from all of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Don't look to replace Monty Ball with another Broncos running back. Look somewhere else. Broncos defense. You also are not going to play them this week. The Jets do give up a lot of points to defenses.
Yeah, you should totally play their defense.
But the issue is that there's a lot of other good defenses out there. So
you're right. The Jets are just so bad.
They're so bad. I know, they're really bad. But
if you could refrain from snorting, Brandon, that would be great.
I actually prefer you snort
this
more.
Is pretty comical, but
guys, you guys. The Jets. Ooh.
It's the best team in the NFL.
You guys, I just, when Geno Smith missed a meeting due to being in a movie theater,
yes.
Or I don't know,
it was amazing. I counted 2 hours behind instead of 2 hours ahead of her. Hilarious.
It was.
What movie was he seeing? Do we know? That's what I was intrigued. I was like, I wonder what he's seen on game day.
Well, supposedly he forgot, and then now we found out it's Gone Girl. I think it's a very weird story.
Which is allegedly. Do you see how they keep saying in the previews, best date movie of 2014? And I'm like, has anybody read the book would know this is about a bad marriage? How is this a good date movie? And I would like to say, how is this a good pregame movie?
Obviously, I'm so beyond the Geno Smith situation. It's not even about that. They can't even get past the 50-yard line. So it's not just him, although it was just him in a movie theater, or maybe he had friends. I don't know, but I'm disturbed by the whole thing. The highest scoring offensive weapon last week on the Jets was even worse than the Jaguars. It was Chris Ivory with 4 points, 4.0 points. 4.4, I'm sorry. He rushed for 44 yards. I have to give him his 0.4 points because it's that tragic. So anyway, no one's a must-play. I will put him in the gut calls because the Broncos give up the 4th most points to running backs. But other than that, you guys, Eric Decker.
It's bad.
I mean, it's a homecoming, so I usually like players on homecoming. I'm not saying he was out hurt again last week, but if he can be healthy, I think he could have a decent game. But when is he ever going to get on the field? When is he ever going to do what we're asking? And when he does, he's great. So anyway, I feel like it is what it is, and everyone else is on the bench. No fly zone. Do not touch. It's totally ugly. And I may not see Gone Girl now because I'm so upset.
What's upsetting is that the Broncos, everybody needs to realize that the Broncos might be benched partway through the game.
That's true.
If it's going to be a blowout. So just realize that, like, if your guy doesn't get points in the first half, he might not get points. So just
yeah.
It's a good point, Courtney.
Just become aware. Baltimore Ravens 3-2. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, play him if you got him. Steve Smith Sr. Okay, one bad game. does not mean that you rush and drop the player or put him on your bench.
Agreed.
Okay?
Stop freaking out, Twitter.
Stop it. Stop it. It's Triple S here, people. And
Triple
he's
S,
real.
baby.
It's Triple S. He's going to be fine. He's having a great week against the Bucks. They give up a lot of points to wide receivers, people. I'm going to stop talking about it. He's in. Move on. Justin Tucker. Tampa Bay gives up the 12th most fantasy points to running backs, and he's not a bad running back. No, he's not. I enjoy Forsett.
Forsett. Yeah, I actually really like him. I think he's kind of getting downplayed.
Explosive. I feel like the Ravens are almost using him appropriately, where he's kind of the secret weapon. People kind of lose it. So I'm into him. I'm playing him. Owen Daniels. I'm playing Baltimore's defense. People. Hey, playing him. Justin Tucker. 11 most fantasy points to kickers, and that's a stat. Who cares? It's a kicker, right? But it's Justin Tucker. We're playing him too. Gut calls. Joe Flacco. We have him ranked 16th. He's had a very up and down season thus far. Very up and down. Last week he had no touchdowns and 1 interception, ending the game with 7 fantasy points. That's not good. But what is good is that they're going up against Tampa Bay. It's going to be the theme to this. So, if you're desperate, if you're like Alex Smith was your guy for some reason, or Drew Brees and your backup is Derek Carr,
right?
Joe Flacco is your guy. And I also have Torrey Smith and Gut calls, bench warmers, the rest of the running backs, and that's about it. Go Baltimore.
Go Baltimore. I only got one play if you got him for the Bucks, and that's Vincent Jackson.
Oh, thank goodness.
So, they only have one play him if you got him, and it's Vincent Jackson.
I don't know. Mike Glennon might be there by the end of the season.
Yeah. I saw this.
I like Glennon.
We have him on the bench, and I disagree, but that's okay. We'll get there.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. But
spoilers.
Vincent Jackson. So we said he was going to get you 11 points last week, and we were wrong because he had 2-point increases each week. He actually got you 14 last week. So, yeah. And that was all without a touchdown.
Of the week.
I would like to say. All without a touchdown. He got 8 passes for 144 yards.
Amazing.
And he and Mike Glennon have really good chemistry together. So he is thrilled that Glennon's the one that is in. So feel really good about him. My gut calls is Doug Martin and Bobby Rainey. Committees are fantasy nightmare, and these two guys basically fall into it. Rainey's actually only in the field for 40% of the snaps, and Martin gets the majority of the touches, but Martin's not doing a whole lot with the touches, and the problem is that Rainey is actually more productive than Martin, but you aren't exactly sure who's going to get the ball near the goal line. It's just a mess, so stay away if you can. Bench, I do have Mike Glennon.
Boo.
He had a pretty decent week. He threw for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception last week's game.
He was balling.
Here's the reason he's on my bench, though, and I do think this is logical, is there are other sleeper quarterbackers out there, like Brian Hoyer, who's only owned in 3% of the league, that I would pick up over Glennon. So I'm just saying, if you're a Josh McCown owner, I'm not saying you should necessarily handcuff yourself with Glennon if Brian Hoyer is out there. I think Glennon is doing well, and I think that they're probably going to be a nice little quarterback controversy coming back. And I think Glennon may actually win this outright. But you would honestly pick up Glennon over Hoyer?
I'm playing Glennon in my undefeated league, thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Glennon. You will not be on my bench.
Brandon, would you play Glennon over Hoyer?
Who are they playing again? We're talking about them. Oh, Baltimore.
Baltimore's defense is tough. I will give you that.
Baltimore's defense is a little bit tougher. I think they're right in the same area. I also like Austin Davis from St. Louis. I think there are a lot of sleepers because, frankly, the studs
the studs are disappointing. Well, this is going to be the game of the week. San Diego Chargers 4-1 against the Oakland Raiders 0-4.
Yeah, it's really a toss-up between this and the Broncos and Jets. But,
It's tough. Have another huge blowout this week.
This is lovely. So the Chargers, as a Bronco fan, I'm a little nervous. The Chargers can win in a variety of ways.
Love them.
And they are fantasy gold, really. They're just kind of getting it done. Brandon Oliver, one of the pickups of the week.
Huge.
This guy is this adorable 5'8". When you see him scuttle down the field, you're like, oh, it looks like a video game, like running around. He is rocking it. The Jets have the #1 run defense in the league, and he rushed for 114 yards and a touchdown, and then tacked on another 68 yards receiving and another touchdown. It's crazy. So, yes, here's the deal. Danny Woodhead's out for the season, right? Donald Brown is out with a concussion. He has to go through the protocol. As of right now, it doesn't look like he's going to play. Ryan Matthews is out until probably week 8. But even when Ryan Matthews comes back, it seems like Brandon Oliver is going to take over the Danny Woodhead position. So I think he has fantasy value throughout the year. I'm not saying he's going to be stud muffin. Like, for me personally, I would rather pick up Andre Williams from the Giants because I feel like he's going to be the guy until Jennings comes back, whereas Oliver, when Matthews comes back, it'll get a little hazy. But I still feel like he's a great pickup, really interesting player. It's fun to watch. So Phillip Rivers is the man, but you know that if you've been listening to this podcast, so I have nothing else to say about that. And in case you missed it, Antonio Gates did prove he's back from his injuries, so play all you want. And Keenan Allen,
dicey.
His best game was against Jacksonville when he caught 10 passes for 135 yards. But isn't everyone's best game against Jacksonville? Yeah. He doesn't have another one of those. So I'm concerned. And I don't think he's stud muffin territory, but he's a solid wide receiver 2 or 3, just like Malcolm Floyd and Eddie Royal. Both caught 3 passes apiece last week. But they outscored Keenan Allen because they had more yardage. So Benchwarmers, I told you to drop Ladarius Green like months ago, but if you still have him, start listening. He caught 1 pass for 8 yards. The week before that, he zeroed out. Stop it.
Clap on, people. Clap on. Oakland Raiders, new coach, same mess. No playing if you got him. Got calls just because we got to have one. I'm going to throw James Jones out there. James Jones. He's clearly the best player. That's why I put him in gut calls, but really don't play him. Try to find a different option. It's week 6 against San Diego, who give up the second fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. So just wanted somebody to talk about. Bench warmers. Oh, everyone else. Derek Carr. We have him ranked 30th, and that's only because 2 teams are on bye. My mother always, our mother always told us, like most mothers, if there's nothing nice to say, don't say it, but this is too much fun, I have to. So let's get into it. Carr is injured. Knee and ankle. That's fun. Carr has only 2 games over 10 points, and those were in week 1 and 2, so it's done for him. Carr is the worst offense in the NFL, I would say. Raiders, yeah, sure. Carr has a new coach, and this is his 5th game in the NFL, so he's a rookie with a new coach. That's not a good equation. Carr is playing San Diego that gives up the 4th fewest points to quarterbacks, so that's not good. And I'm sure there are many more reasons why not to start Carr, but it's a 90-minute show, people. And the Carr thing is over. But he's fun. He's a nice boy.
He's a nice guy. He'll be great
nice
next
guy.
Time.
Great guy. Thank you, Oakland. That was good times. Good times. Chicago Bears 2-3. The Atlanta Falcons 2-3.
Great. So the Chicago Bears is pretty much once again must plays for almost everyone, especially against Atlanta. Atlanta gives up the absolute most points to running backs, so you're playing Matt Forte, who is back. Here's the deal. You're playing Jay Cutler, Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall, must starts every week. However, let's talk about Brandon Marshall. Last week he disappointed you with 3 catches for 44 yards, but don't worry. Trutzman already said that Marshall needs to be targeted more, which, by the way, has never been said since he's been a teammate of Cutler. I was like, yeah, what? So look for a redemption game next week. Supposedly he's 100% healthy finally, so no problems. Martellus Bennett, though, I'm putting him in gut calls because even though he's a stud muffin, last week I told you he had a tough matchup. We still had him in must-plays because he was so awesome. But then he only caught 3 passes for 17 yards. This is actually they give up the 2nd fewest points to tight ends, Atlanta. So you probably have to play him. But once again, this is just us saying you may not, if you have another option, this is the week to consider it. So, but we love him the rest of the way. But rest of the way, don't get it twisted. Don't drop him. Don't do anything crazy. Just know what this is. And then bench warmers, I wouldn't play their defense, but pretty much everyone else, go for it.
Nice.
Don't get it twisted. I like that.
On to the Falcons. You're playing Julio Jones. Come on, you always are. Matt Ryan. So Ryan is not, seem like he's been the standout that we were hoping for. When you're watching these games, you're kind of like, but he's actually the 4th highest scoring quarterback this year.
I'm saying everyone's mediocre.
Yeah. I mean, he scored 30 points, then 23, then 19, and then 14. So it's going in a downward direction. But yeah, he's still the 4th highest scoring quarterback. So you have to play him. You have to. I'm sorry. It's a must. Got calls, Roddy White, and then I'm talking about Antone Smith. He did it again last week. He only had 1 carry for 2 yards, but then he had 3 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown. He scored you 14 points, people. Again, I don't know why the Falcons...
I almost ranked him in the wide receivers.
Seriously.
Almost.
The Falcons have lost their ever-loving minds if they're not giving this guy more playing time. They have lost
Antone Smith!
I don't get it.
I don't get it.
Now. But this guy is fantasy flex gold. When you think of a flex position, you need to think Antone Smith.
He Jackson
is the man. The man. And literally could probably be scoring 20-some points for you if they actually gave him more than 4 snaps. Just saying. Just saying. Get it together, Falcons. Get it together. On to Steven Jackson. So Jackson had 12 points last week, which was his 2nd time that he has scored more than 10 points, but he only had 37 rushing yards, but he did find the end zone for the 2nd time this year.
Woo!
I don't love him, but I never love him. And he didn't do well against the Bengals defense, and the Bears give up the 13th fewest points, so he's not my favorite this week. And then on the bench is everybody else.
There's some people that we just purposely don't bench because we've been playing fantasy for a long time, and we know that they're going to screw you over. Steven Jackson, Ridley, we don't do it. Right. We don't draft them. But if you do draft them, shame on you, and now you are stuck. Play them. Play them.
Yep.
Dallas Cowboys 4-1 and Seattle Seahawks 3-1. I hope you drafted these guys because we're playing them. Does Bryant?
We're playing the whole matchup.
We're playing the whole matchup of the week.
All the way
through. Seattle's defense is not what they used to be.
No.
And the Cowboys' defense is not what they used to be. Although they didn't have a great week last week, the Cowboys' defense is looking better.
Yep.
I'm not playing them this week against Seattle, but just throwing that out there. Keep an eye. Play him if you got him. Cowboys, though, is Dez Bryant. Yet another game in double digits. And
Great
4th game in a row.
Great, that catch. Did you see that catch, though?
Brilliant.
Nuts.
He is like one of the only ones that really isn't disappointing us. I mean, he's not having huge numbers, but he's like, consistent. Hey, I'll take it. So we're going to play him. We're also going to play Terrence Williams. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah, let's do it.
Touchdown magnet.
Yeah, he's a great wide receiver 3-year flex option. Double digits in the last 2 weeks, and he's had 5 touchdowns this year. So
awesome.
Okay. Dan Bailey, the kicker. Gotta
My favorite.
do it. Yeah.
He missed one and made the game interesting, but then he redeemed himself.
He did redeem himself. He's had 3 games in double digits and a 9-point game in their win over Houston last week. So I'm okay with it. I'm totally.
And it was like the first kick he had missed, I want to say, in like 30 attempts. It was very unusual.
Very unusual. Not huge. It's fine. We're gonna play him. Gut calls Tony Romo. We have him ranked 10th. 4th game in a row in double digits, which isn't that important for a quarterback because they should always be getting double digits. But hey, it's better than week 1's performance where 3 interceptions and he gave you a whopping 9 fantasy points. So for this reason, Romo is so high in our rankings is that Seattle actually gives up the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. And he is getting healthier, I should say.
He looks so much better.
So much better. So I'm kind of high on Romo this year or this week. I'm into it.
There's something endearing about Romo, right? I like Romo.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Even when I don't like Romo, I like Romo.
I know, it sucks. I hate to love him, and I do. Jason Witten, we have him ranked 11th. He sucks, and I hate him, but listen, we're in gut calls here, and the only reason is that Seattle gives up the 4th most fantasy points at tight ends.
They do. It's crazy.
I just want to say out loud, his best game, he has 61 yards. He has yet to have a touchdown. He's not my favorite at all. I would bench him, but c'est la vie. And there's somebody you're like, why haven't you spoke about him? Well, sadly enough, I put him on my bench, Mr. DeMarco Murray, the best running back in the league. It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
Sharing crap about Glennon and you're benching DeMarco Murray.
I know. I'm benching the best running back.
I
can't help you. I can't help
crazy.
you. But nobody can run on Seattle. Nobody. The best running back against Seattle was Ryan Matthews, and he had just over 5 points.
But he's barely a running back.
Okay, we got talking about Eddie Lacy, Alfred Morris, and then there's one other person I can't think of off the top of my head who's actually really good too.
Monty Ball.
Monte Ball.
But none of them are really good. Well,
Alfred Morris is good. And you know what?
Eddie Lacy, yeah.
Ball should have done better. And Eddie
I
Lacy
think
should have done better.
Murray will do better than all of them.
Sure, he might get you 7 points.
Put
And
him in
I'm
a
just
flex.
letting you know that. That he's
All right.
not going to be your number running back. You know, he's not going to be number 1 running back this week in week 6. So, yes, I mean, sure, you're playing him, but I'm letting you know he's benched in the sense that he's not going to be getting you 18 points this week, people.
I agree with that.
Just realize this is Seattle's defense, and if he scores you 3 points, don't be mad at me. Anyways.
Well, I have DeMarco Murray in almost all of my leagues, so you just depressed me. And now I have to talk about Seattle. Thanks. Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson. Now, I've been saying since game 1 of preseason, this guy is an every down starter every week. He is literally one of the top guys right behind Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, and that's where he should be. I know that he's not throwing for gaudy numbers, but have you seen this guy run? It's crazy, and he doesn't get hit, so it's like he's not going to get hurt. I don't know how he does it. It's magic, but I can say nothing else about it other than you must always start Russell Wilson, and it'll be very interesting where he goes next year in the draft. And he's one of the very few people that hasn't disappointed. Same with Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch has redefined beast mode, and we just need to all live in his world, okay?
Yeah,
Whatever it is, I want some. And he even
Maybe
caught
we
5
can get
passes.
some next year.
Yeah.
They keep talking about not re-signing Marshawn Lynch, and I'm like, you're crazy town. You're crazy town, Seattle.
Right. Well, the Broncos should call him immediately. Yeah, so anyway, he caught 5 passes for 45 yards, too, so you can even play him in PPR formats and be fancy. Stop it. Percy Harvin had 3 touchdowns taken back.
Brutal. Twitter was on a fire about it.
I thought Percy Harvin owners were going to riot and actually burn down Twitter.
They should have.
Luckily, it's not a house. But if he had that, Russell Wilson would have had a historic night as a fantasy quarterback as well. So we're not talking enough about that. But what I will say is you should buy low on Percy Harvin right now. In fact, I told someone to try to trade Cordero Patterson for Percy Harvin.
Heck yeah,
sure.
I'd take that trade.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but as it is, he only caught 4 passes for 27 yards. But you should have had like 30 points. So anyway.
It's more than Patterson.
Yeah. Gut calls, I wouldn't touch anyone else on this team with a 10-foot pole. Those are the people you play, and then everyone else no-go. And then I'm going to say, maybe this will be reverse psychology, but Seattle defense has yet to score double-digit fantasy points, and they've only forced 1 interception on the season. So this is why you draft defenses in the second to last round and kickers in the last round, because you just don't know.
Bam. Washington Redskins 1-4 against the Arizona Cardinals 3-1.
Could be interesting. Playing if you got him, Deshaun Jackson. Jackson's always a threat, you know, and certainly was last week. He was the second highest scoring wide receiver, scoring 21 points. Hit 157 yards off 5 catches, caught a touchdown. Deshaun is dynamic. He is just to force you recommend on the field, you have to play him. It is what it is. He's a little Hunkle, but you have to. Kirk Cousins, I also have in my must-starts, which I find even I'm a little hard time saying it, but he was the 9th highest scoring quarterback last week.
Yeah, he was.
He's a contender for a start this week, especially because the Cardinals actually give up the 5th most points to opposing quarterbacks.
And Courtney and I started him over Andy Dalton. In other words, I started him over Andy Dalton, but I called her to make sure that I wasn't crazy.
Yes, and you know what? I was so sick of watching all of these things and being like, oh, see, he's not that good at quarterback. He had one bad game. He won bad game. Aaron Rodgers had a bad game. Are we going to, sit him? No, I don't think so.
Well, Rodgers will definitely hurt.
Yeah, I mean,
but
you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Hyperbole.
Right. But, I mean, he had the same points as Andrew Luck last week.
Yeah, he did.
So, that's saying something.
Elite quarterback, people. Elite.
Luck is elite. Like I said, Cousins is elite, but that's like a crazy fear.
We'll see.
Pierre Garçon is certainly hoping that Cousins becomes elite because it's a problem right now. Because Garçon's not the problem. He's talented. It's the fact he's just not being targeted all that much. He's only targeted 3 times in last week's game. 3. And he caught 2 of the passes for 23 yards. So it's just, unfortunately, whenever there's this kind of like possible quarterback woes, controversy, all this kind of stuff, and generally the wide receivers kind of shoulder the brunt of that, and right now it's kind of fallen onto Pierre Garçon. My bench is Alfred Morris. Morris was completely unproductive last week, only rushing for 29 yards off 13 carries. Can you believe that? That is crazy. And the Cardinals allow the 5th fewest points to running backs, so this is just not a good week at all. And the biggest problem is that they do not target Morris as a receiver, so he's not even going to be able to remotely compensate for the fact that they're able to shut down the run. It's just going to be ugly for Alfred Morris. And then Redskins tight ends, they're not being thrown to enough. You can barely even name me a tight end on the team other than Niall Paul, and he's just not doing great anyway, so stop it.
A lot of injuries.
This is not going to be a running game. This is not going to be a running game because I, too, have Andre Johnson in gut calls. He blew up last week after his bye. Congratulations. You looked fabulous. But this week against Washington, they are scary against the run, too. So if you have anybody better, please play them. If not, well, don't expect numbers like last week at all. Play him if you got him. I'm going to put Michael Floyd there, although I played him. And I'm mad too. But listen, he's a boomer bust player, and it's pretty on point. He had first week 12 points, second week 1.9, third week 11.4, fourth week 0.7. So this week, we're on for a boom kind of week, people. So
if they have a quarterback.
You know what, Brandon? You hush your mouth.
The Redskins' defense is actually decent.
Pattern is a pattern, regardless, okay?
We don't need someone to throw the ball.
He's gone through a few quarterbacks. He's fine. He's good. I also have Arizona's defense is a good play this week. We have him ranked 10th. Carson Palmer, watch the injury report. Injury report. Injury report. Injury report. All right. So, yeah, all the moms and dads out there will totally know what I'm talking about, okay? So you just...
Okay.
Tim got it. My husband got it immediately. He's like, that's awesome. That's so funny. I was like, yeah, well, yeah, I'll throw it in there. We're not the coolest people, but, we do. So Palmer has been throwing this week without any setbacks, but the coaches want him to have a full day of practice. So... the real kicker is, if he gets hit on Sunday, will he be able to continue to play? That's what I'm worried about. A shoulder is an issue, right? Because, you fall on it and, you throw with it. So it's not my favorite injury to be having for a quarterback. But before he got injured, he did put up 21 fantasy points in week 1 with over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. So...
against San Diego, who we found out is a good team.
Is a good team, a good defense. So, to be honest, even if he doesn't play the whole game, he might be able to get you more points than other people will be able to. So, in the scene that Washington gives up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks, I'm into it. Whoever the coach decides to play, it might be the sleeper. So, I'm good. I'm going. Bench warmers, Larry Fitzgerald, wow. Oof. John Brown, too. I'm going to put him on the bench as well. Larry has yet to break 6 fantasy points. Yep, sad. It's the truth. Brown has had 1 game in double digits and 3 touchdowns this year, but, both are inconsistent, and it's just not my favorite. I mean, they could get you 7 points. They could also get you 1 point, so bench him. Bench 'em. New York Giants 3-2 to Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia. I'll try that again. Eagles 4-1. I was gonna let it roll, then I was like, maybe I should correct myself. Play him if you got him. What? Eli Manning ranked 7th on her fantasy football. Yes, he is, you guys.
Dude, I just do stats.
Yep.
I don't have a bias. That's why I said when I ranked Eli low last year, it wasn't because I had a bias. It's because I was doing math.
What it is, people.
A little bit of a bias. And I respect
Math is not a bias. It's fact.
It's fact. It's fact. Week 1 was bad, but he's not that bad anymore. It's a great matchup against the Eagles, who give up the 2nd most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Now that Beckham Jr.'s in, I mean, he's got lots of weapons. Lots of weapons. Andre Williams, welcome to the game, my friends.
Pickup of the week.
Pickup of the week. He's had double digits in the last 2 games regardless, and I love him. They loved him this preseason. He's done great. My husband says he was fantastic at Boston College. I don't know. I don't watch college football. But you know what? Coughlin loves him too, and he feels confident, and he, wants to give him the ball. So must start. Pick him up and play him.
Until he fumbles, I'm all in.
Yeah, right. They've got nobody else. We're cool. It's good. You got to play him. Victor Cruz, only start him as a wide receiver 3 or flex. This matchup is the best it can be, but we're talking about Victor Cruz here. It's upsetting.
Yeah.
It's really upsetting. So please don't let us down like you did last week. Thank you. I also have Larry Donald in. Play him if you got him. I know he screwed us all over last week, but it's going to get better, guys. He's great. He's awesome. It's going to blow up, so it's fine. Got calls. I've got Ruben Randall. He had a rough game last week. You have to be desperate to play him. He's dropping balls. He's missing routes. It's crazy, but they're bad against wide receivers. So if you need him, Odell Beckham Jr., he's in the play too, guys. He had 44 yards and a touchdown. I'm okay with him. Pick him up. Pick him up if he's still available. Pick him up. And that's it. I'm done with the Giants.
Yeah. Well, I wish I was done with the Eagles because they are just vexing me. Really tough, guys. Really tough. So Jeremy Maclin, though, does continue to be awesome. So you have to play him. He's probable with a hamstring, but he'll play. Last week he caught 5 passes for 76 yards and a touchdown, which is a fantastic week. So go for it. Philadelphia defense. You know an Eli implosion is on the brink, and it could be in Philadelphia this week. And all I'm saying is that Philadelphia has had over 20 fantasy points for 2 weeks in a row. Okay? They are going crazy town with turnovers. So I'm a rookie running back plus Eli. It's a big maybe, but it's still a maybe.
Could see week 1 for the Giants all over again. I'm right. You're right.
Putting it out there, which is a good thing because no one else in Philadelphia seems to have any sort of fantasy implications that are positive. McCoy, well, you know what? He had 81 yards on the ground last week, but he also lost a fumble. And he's just a far cry from the #1 draft pick that you picked. Sorry. No one could predict that. It's a complete bizarre implosion. And until we see something different, it is what it is. And they got calls as well as Nick Foles. He just keeps getting beat up. Last week he threw for 207 yards and 2 touchdowns, but then also an interception. And we told you not to start these guys against St. Louis because St. Louis defense, pretty darn good. So it is what it is. This week the Giants do give up the 9th most fantasy points to running backs. So if you are going to play McCoy, if you're going to give him one last big hurrah, this is the week. I'm putting Darren Sproles on the bench, but you might get some production from him if you're in a really tight pinch. Do not start Zach Ertz, however. The Giants give up the 2nd fewest points to tight ends, and he hasn't been very good anyway. And I'd still keep Riley Cooper on the bench, even though, last week he did catch 4 passes for 33 yards and a touchdown. But other than that, he's been pretty shoddy. So that's pretty much what I'm doing until they restructure their offensive line.
Thanks for being a complete disappointment, Philadelphia. Let's move on to the San Francisco 49ers, 3-2 against the St. Louis Rams, 1-3.
Monday Night Football.
Monday Night Football.
So I don't know why I told my husband I had a brain fart about this write-up because I just feel really bad for some reason about San Francisco this week. I just feel like they have had weird things going on. St. Louis is feisty. I don't know. But anyway, you do want to play him if you got him. Frank Gore. He's a great running back too. He's come back. They realize now that they have to run the ball if they want to win games. Last week he ran for 107 yards. You don't bench people that run for over 100 yards. That's your new rule. But calls, Kaepernick. I don't love Kaepernick. He didn't have a great game last week either. He completed 14 of 26 passes. There's a lot of turmoil. Jim Harbaugh may or may not be coaching there next year. I don't know. The whole thing is a little weird. He's averaging 222 passing yards per game and 41 rushing yards per game. That's okay, but it's so I don't know. But he is in the gut calls. So, you can play him. Michael Crabtree concerns me. He hurt his foot again, the one that he got redone twice in 2009. He caught one pass for 16 yards. The week before he caught 5 passes for 43 yards. It's looking rough. But if you are in a PPR league, Anquan Boldin is a decent option if you need to fill in, if you're waiting to see if Crabtree is going to be playing. Seems like he's probable, but still. He's averaging 5 catches and 60 yards. That's 11 points in a PPR league. Could do worse for fill-in. And on the bench, I'm still putting Stevie Johnson there because he's big play dependent. He only caught 1 pass in the last 2 weeks, but both passes went for touchdowns and were highlight reel material. So I understand the thought of starting him, but it's and then Brandon Lloyd was that's just a fluke deal. But that's the whole thing with San Francisco this year. It feels like it's all fluky, which is why it's really difficult to analyze. Other than Frank Gore should always be getting the ball, which is my motto.
Yep. Who should also always be getting the ball is Brian Quick.
Yes.
Sign me up.
Yep. So I am loving him right now. His production has been great. He had 9.7 points, 12 points, then a bye week, and then 20 points last week. Ooh, huge game. He is loving Austin Davis, the new quarterback. Davis is targeting him a lot. He feels comfortable with him. He is a must-start for you this week. Austin Davis, I have him in my gut call section, and I'm going to explain why. So he had 21 points in third week, and then they had a bye week, right? And then he had 26 points last week. Now, granted, he played the Cowboys and the Eagles, so he's only in my gut call section because I want to see how he does against the Niners, who give up the 7th fewest points to quarterbacks. So that's why he's in the gut call section here. But if he does well against the Niners, then this guy could, literally, he threw for almost 400 yards last week.
It's crazy.
He was the 3rd highest scoring quarterback. This guy deserves a thought, but because against the Niners, he's in the gut call. Yeah. If he proves it to you this week, pick him up. Kenny Britt is someone else you should maybe consider if you're having some quarterback injury woes. This is a name we have not brought up in a very long time, but he's actually developed a nice rapport with Davis. He had 6 points 2 weeks ago and then 12 points last week. So he's not a terrible option if you're in a pinch. My bench, Jared Cook, because Cook should always be benched. He's just not getting targeted enough. He only had 4 passes for 44 yards, so you can't remotely consider him.
Bam! Ashley, get it done. Thank you very much. So the motto of the game, people, is if you get 10 points out of a player, be happy, not sad.
Be happy.
That's how the 2014 season is going. Make sure you take out the Chiefs and the Saints out of your lineups, guys. We're into week 6. It's going to be a great fantasy time. Enjoy yourselves. Make sure to hop over to herfantasyfootball.com and on Twitter at herfantasyfb. Always check us out on ESPNW. We love doing our job. And on Facebook /herfantasyfootball. Until next week, no more faking it.